Couture Construction Season 10, Episode 137, The Foundation, Framing, Structure, and Interior Flow. Welcome back to Couture Construction. I'm your host, Andrew Denny, and you're listening to Season 10, The Build Revisited, a design journey from land to legacy. Every home has a story. Here's how it's built. Today's chapter is all about the foundation and not just the concrete and steel kind. We're talking about the moment a house begins to rise out of the ground, where framing is set, space is defined, and all the early design decisions start taking shape in real time. Joining us are two incredible guests who work at the intersection of structure and story. Jay Harper, Charleston-based builder known for his thoughtful, detail-driven homes, and Marie-Joe Bouffard, a returning guest and designer who brings beauty, functionality, and intention to every square inch of a project. Together, we'll explore how designer and builder collaborate during this critical phase and how trust, communication, and flexibility help turn plans on paper into real livable spaces. So welcome, Marie-Jo. Welcome, Jay. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. You said season 10.
Yeah, season 10. I know.
I absolutely cannot believe it. I was on season 1, like episode 2 or 3 or something crazy like that. Seems like yesterday.
It's been quite a fun journey.
So fun.
Jay, welcome up from Charleston. At least it's nice and hot here, so you don't feel too far from home.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so first topic. When framing begins, what shifts in the build process, both technically and emotionally? And Jay, why don't I let you handle the technical, and Marie-Jo, you handle the emotional?
So technically, when I'm building a house, I build a house backwards. I start with what I want it to look like when it ends, and then I go back to how do I need to frame to make that happen. So that's when the real rubber meets the road, so to speak, of we're doing things that are going to affect the final outcome. And that's when the decisions have to get made. That's when the house comes to life. You start getting a little bit of the soul into the house at that point. Homeowners can come and see something that's been 2D until that point.
Very cool. So Marie-Jo, homeowners get to come and see this. You get to see it.
That's definitely an important and an exciting stage for clients always, because up to that point, we've been looking at plans, sometimes for months, sometimes for years. And we've been moving walls with a red pen, on plans, working with the architect, even landscape architect, builder, but it's all theoretical. And then finally you have, stick walls to walk through. So it's a really important checkpoint. It's the first chance that we as designers and our clients have to really feel the space and make sure that everything translates from paper to real life the way we really pictured it. Are the rooms truly, as large? We've done CAD drawings, furniture layouts to check all of that ahead of time, but there's nothing like seeing it real life. We as well, none of us are infallible. So it's also our first chance to check everything, make sure that we like the size of our door openings. Should a window move? Should, anything like that, that now that we see everything, that we also have our viewpoints from important doors, windows. Is there any change? It's a lot less expensive to, move some framing than later on when there's mechanical in the walls and sheetrock and all that fun stuff.
So when you get to this point, and just kind of this may be a dumb question, is there always changes in your experience during the framing walk? Or is it ever like, oh, no, this is great, let's keep going?
Always.
Usually both, but always changes. I mean, we'll build furniture mock-ups out of plywood so that homeowners can actually come in and sit down, so that when I'm sitting in this chair, my TV needs to be here. This window needs to move 6 inches to the left because I want to make sure I get that view corridor. But there's always something.
I need to go work with you, Jay. I want a builder that makes
some furniture mock-ups, right?
Some furniture mock-ups. Man, okay, Nashville guys, let's step up. That sounds amazing. No, yeah, I don't think I've ever done a project in the last 20 years where there has not been some changes. I think that it just comes, regardless of how well we think we've massaged those plans, it just comes again from that first taste of what are we seeing. And one of the biggest thing, if nothing at all changes, it's clients realizing all of the space that they could not see on the plan under roof. So very often, I have a project right now, I think we have 3 additional rooms because we've realized there's really great attic spaces that can be so charming. Let's add a dormer, let's add a window here, and let's turn this room into, the most fantastic craft room for 2 little girls. Or so we rarely do not end up doing that, adding floor square footage and finishing additional rooms, a second story closet, whatever the case may be. And then there's also just some tweaks to, views and, things that we're now like, there's this fantastic tree that we can see from this one window at a client's, and we've now decided to enlarge the window to really maximize, this fantastic 100-year-old tree on the property that the client loves and really wants to feel like it's part of the home. So I think that there needs to be a little bit of that flexibility, right? Construction is a fluid, kind of organic process. You can't be too rigid.
What about, speaking of that, when you get there, what is the theory you use? What is even the mindset that you have to be in to do one of these? Because I'll use an example. We did a home remodel, and it was really enlightening to me because I had a friend acting as the GC, but he called us over to do the electrical walk. And I had allowed like 20 minutes. Like I had no idea, and I've been doing this for a long time, but I'm floor. So 5 hours later, we're getting to, and I couldn't believe it. And it was like, I probably approached it with the wrong mindset. So what type of mindset do you have to be to step into this? Because I have to imagine it would be very easy to miss some things.
It would be. I mean, it's definitely right. Before we get to that point, we've done a lot of work. We have a lot of our main concept. We have a lot of our selections done. If you want a gorgeous natural stone flooring in your foyer, we had to decide that at the plan stage, because that means the builder has to set the floor to a different height than the one that will receive the hardwoods, right? We have done electrical layouts. We've reviewed them with our clients. We've made changes based on their feedback or new ideas, and it's constantly evolving. So you have to have a well-formulated plan, of course, getting to that stage. But then it's those walkthroughs, once the house is framed, is our chance to make sure that everything feels right. And very often, yes, seeing a room, seeing the volume or the scale of a room, we'll end up thinking, maybe we need 4 decorative lights in this great huge kitchen instead of only 2 pendants, right? Do we need to tweak anything to really do the best for this project? So I think you have to approach it from both being so well prepared, so well organized, but also with this element of flexibility, being open to changing the best laid plans, tweaking them to really give the best result.
Sure. Jay, as the builder, I often see projects coming out of the ground. And oftentimes, again, not as quite a layperson, but as a layperson when it comes to framing, it seems like I'll have driven past a site where it was foundation one day, then come back a week later, and it's framed. What does the process look like, and is it as fast as it seems? And I know there's varying levels of complexity, but it really does seem like it moves at the speed of light.
So framing is definitely one of those phases where you have a lot of visual progress very quickly. You know, your foundation, depending on where you are and what the soil's like, you know, they can kind of drag on for a while. Don't really see a lot of progress. Framing, it's coming up out of the ground. You're making vertical progress. The layperson can visually see a ton of progress. You know, and then it'll slow back down, and then it'll speed up again when finishes start going in, and you kind of have that undulating thing through construction. And for us as builders, you know, I wear a tool belt most days when we're framing a job site. I'm out there every day working, and that's like a gratification thing for me too. If I'm able to take part in this, I know every nail, I know every board in this house, along with the guys that I'm working alongside. And I build the house in my head and on paper well before we ever start. So my gratification comes from the work that I did doing that. Now I'm able to see it happen and see it take place. I can drive my kids and be like, look what Dad did over the week. That kind of thing. It never goes as fast as you want it to, right? But that's framing is the part where you get to see that most rapid progress.
Okay. Last night we were talking about over dinner the term framing packages. Explain to our listeners what that means and how framing packages are delivered. Because I know there's been a lot of advancement in technology with how all of that works. So I'd love to just kind of hear what makes up a framing package that eventually gets constructed.
So Charleston, our structurers of our houses are incredibly complicated because of our seismic, our hurricanes and everything. So other areas you're able to take more advantage of panelized systems. You'll see are getting really popular in New England. And you can literally bring the house on a couple tractor trailers. And for us too, a lot of it depends on the site. So one of my job sites right now, I can stack about one lift of lumber and that's it. You can't get around the house. We're carrying everything. And it's a first thing every day. We're getting deliveries for what we need. And other projects, I can drop off the entire floor system at once. So for us, what I call a framing package is everything from the block to the roof line. All of your lumber, you know, structural steel may be broken out a little differently depending on how complex it is. But anything that is going to make up the vertical structure of that house, aside from the masonry, that's your framing package.
And are some of those things like pre-cut so that you don't, like, let's say it's 10-foot ceilings. Are they sending you material that is already that size so that it does go faster? Or is it still, I mean, I'm sure something has to happen, but is it pre-sized to some degree or you know, those technical details?
Yeah, so the only thing that we're getting pre-made like that is our trusses, because those have to go through a structural and a truss engineer to do it. Everything else, your I-joists, your LVLs, you know, the lumber yards are stocking a 20-foot and a 24-footer. So if you need 22-foot 6 inches, you're getting a 24-footer and you're going to cut it off.
Okay.
You know, I have my particulars. A lot of framers will have their particulars on how they frame. You know, I put a double bottom plate on everything that I do. So I know that I have to come in and my studs are going to have to get cut 1.5 inches shorter. So there's no pre-cut studs. Most of the houses that we're working on, there's no vanilla, we want a 10-foot ceiling. We want 9-foot 11.25, or we want 10-foot 1.5. So everything is custom. Everything has to get cut to site fit, and we lay all that out ourselves on the job site as we're doing it.
Unrelated question, but I'll ask it anyway, just to help educate our listeners. On all of the commercial projects we work on, it's always metal studs, and the residential projects we work on are seemingly always wood studs. Why is that? Why? I mean, it seems like metal may be better or maybe not. But what do you have any reason or know any reason why that's the case?
A lot of that is because of building codes for commercial structures, specifically fire is very different. So anytime you have a shared wall, that's a firewall. So that's where you'll go into they may build a big shell when they're divvying it up. You go in there, there's metal studs, there's 2 layers of plywood, or 2 layers of fire resistant drywall on each side. That's probably the primary reason behind it. But when you get into certain areas, South Florida, for example, everything down there is going to be metal studs and masonry. And that's their trades, and that's what they know how to do. If you went down there and wanted to wood frame a house, you would struggle to find somebody to do it. But if you came to South Carolina and you wanted to build a masonry house in the same way that they do in South Florida, not that you can't do it and you can't find somebody, but there's a lot less people that have that skill set. Construction is still very regional in our labor, and the specialties and the way that you do things from one region to another are going to be different. That's one of them.
That's actually a great point.
Yeah.
Great point. And we're finding that out right now on a project Marie-Joe and I are working on in the Rockies, and very different process. I mean, I remember hearing from the builder out there, they had to go 160 feet deep for their foundation. And it's like, well,
and you're in the Rockies.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big deal. So how do you communicate together during this process? Like, what, in both of your respective experiences, what should the communication look like between the builder and the designer, and what is really helpful in this time period?
It sounds like Jay is a builder who's very hands-on, which is fantastic. A lot of times builders are not as involved, and we're communicating more with maybe a project manager. That's their, our boots on the ground every single day. But communication is so key. I mean, you have, it's really the synergy between a builder and their project manager, the client and the interior designer, the architect as well, is really the key to the most successful projects, in my opinion. As interior designers, we often act a little bit as we have all kinds of roles. We bridge that communication very often. We translate, so to speak, because we speak construction, but we also speak our client's language. And some builders are better at that than others, being able to vulgarize the processes and for clients to understand, but not all of them. So we very often are a little bit of a translator and, a therapist always. We try to set the expectations. I tried to really explain well to a client what to expect at that frame walk, and don't panic that you'll see that a window opening will be larger than what we discussed the window needs to be. That's on purpose. They overframe, and then, they'll, because otherwise, they go visit their job sites on the weekend, and, Saturday nights can be rough because we're getting these panic texts that, hey, this isn't right. And no, it's not always a mistake, right? So the more that we communicate expectations, I think that it really helps our customers not, our clients just feel more at ease, feel like they're in good hands, don't panic, don't feel like there's all these mistakes, being made. And then of course, just communicate our intention with the design every step of the way with the builder, so that they set us up for success. That, all of those things, like what exactly is going to be the flooring in the entire home? How does it need to be framed to receive that flooring? Where are we going to have any kind of specialty trim beams, where they need to block extra heavily, or if we're going to have a porch swing on the front porch, on the back porch, they need to block before they close all that off, right? It's from all the very large concepts all the way down to it's one of my biggest pet peeve that the toilet paper holder will break off the sheetrock every
Yeah.
so few months. I give my builders a blocking chart, and they're going to block for every hook and every toilet paper holder. And right, we try to be so precise in what we call out so that the builder knows the expectations and, you know, can do all of those things.
And that's got to be so much easier for you as a builder, like, because now, I mean, even just thinking down the road, who wants to come repair sheetrock?
Absolutely.
Like, that's a huge thing.
I think that it's no different than the conversation we have with our clients in the beginning is we're setting expectations, right? I can't build 10 houses at a time and do the same quality that I do, but I can build less houses at a much more greater touch point, more attention to detail. So I'll talk to the interior designer ahead of time and be like, how do you like to communicate? Are you like a more corporate structure and you want the emails? We'll set up us so that we're tailored to what works best for you. You like to text, send pictures back and forth? You know, that's what we do. I tend to develop more personal relationships with not only my clients, but also the design team. Most of the people that I have worked with in the past are my friends to this day. And that relationship building builds rapport. So if I have a question on a bedside switch that does your lamps, and I'm sitting there looking at this after it's going on saying, you know what, this just doesn't look right. I can take a picture of that. In this exact instance, about 3 minutes later, I got a FaceTime call. We were on FaceTime going over it, and they said, you know what, we need to move that up a couple inches. This is what we need to do. And about 5 minutes later, I got a new elevation showing me where they wanted it. And that whole thing sprung because I was just sitting there looking at it like, this doesn't quite look like it's going to work. And the trust that you build up over the course of working with each other, they take that seriously. And it's also a conversation up front with the homeowner of what do you want to get involved in and what are you comfortable delegating to us as the design team? Do we have to come back to you on every switch, on every outlet that we need to move for something, or everything that needs to get revolved? And nobody has ever said that. Everybody has always said, you know, we trust you to make it right. So we'll usually send something out either at the end of the week or just, you know, hey, FYI, we made this adjustment here for you. Very rarely does anybody ever say anything back other than great, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah. No, it's funny. We preach that in my organization that, you know, sometimes I'll hear somebody say, well, I'm gonna take it out and see if they approve it. And I'm like, no, like that's what we're getting paid for. It's already been approved, so does it match what the expectation is?
Yeah.
It's not like that's how we make our money, is to deliver what was approved, not go ask for approval because we don't feel like maybe it's up to expectation. If it's not up to expectation, redo it.
Yeah.
Like it's the same kind of philosophy with that. It's very interesting that you bring up, you know, the level of trust that your clients have to have with you in this process, because to me, it seems, there's so many questions. And I've been through builds, being a part of a build, literally thousands and thousands of times now. And I joke with my wife and I'm like, if we ever build from scratch, like we're going to the framing walk and then after the furniture is set up, like nothing in between. Like that's it. Like we're going to sign off on the drawings. We're going to go see the framing walk and then we're not going back until the flowers are in the house, because there's so many decisions and you see so many folks get paralyzed at every single stage. One week it's the roof, the next week it's, you know, I mean, it's everything. And I feel bad for them because they have an expert team that can see everything and has the experience with it. So anyway, that was just long rambling. But I do think that the trust that the client has to have, they could get inundated. You could get 100 emails a day probably in this process on where a switch needs to be.
No, it's huge, and it's really, do your homework, right? As a client, go meet several builders, walk through some of their projects, talk to some of their clients, and hire someone that you feel like you love their work and that you will trust. And same with your interior designers, because as you said, clients can really experience high anxiety, wanting to be too involved sometimes, and wanting to be, micromanage and be in the minutia of all of it. You don't need to see how the sausage is made all the time. Like that really takes some of the fun away from the construction, and really clients can get in their own way.
Yeah. What I like to tell clients is you need to know yourself. If you are somebody that wants to get down in the weeds on everything, then you need to hire a builder that is going to be down in the weeds on everything.
I completely agree with Jay. Trust and communication is so essential, and it goes multiple ways, right? It's great communication between us, the design team, and our clients, making sure that we run all of our ideas, all of our concepts, our selections well ahead of time. With our clients, get their feedback, tweak anything, run it again by them to make sure that they review anything that is final, and then it all goes to the builder. They then communicate with us to make sure that they have everything that they need. Do they have any questions? Is there anything that pops up on site? So we're constantly emailing, we're constantly texting day and night sometimes. That is really such key to a great project, is that communication circle between all your team members.
Very, very well said. So my next question is, as we're talking about the walkthrough, give me some examples of what are easy fixes. And then my follow-up question is going to be, what are hard fixes or hard revisions?
It's not necessarily a framing related change that's easy. It's more a matter of they're able to be in the space and visualize it, and there are other changes in the grand scope of things that can happen at that. Sometimes it's looking in here, this should be a wood wall and not a plaster wall. So you can do those kinds of things, which does affect how we frame it and how we set it up, but it's not necessarily an easy thing to come in and say, I want to move this window or I want to move that door. Now that being said, one of the things I tell all my clients up front is I am never going to tell you no. That is not my job. It is my job to figure out how to get you what you want. Now, I can't always get you exactly what you want. I'm going to come back and say, this is what we can do. This is what we can make work. This is the consequence of that. Sometimes it's time. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's you have to give a little somewhere else.
Time and money.
And sometimes it's all of the above. But it's up to them to make that call.
I guess my perspective is a little different because for me, it's like easy to move a wall. For Jay, I guess it's not.
The designer.
So one of the things that I definitely pay close attention is okay, this powder room, now that we see it in person, it feels a little tight. What if we steal a little bit from this closet behind it? And when I say easy, I realize that it's not, right? We're not waving a magic wand, but when it's just sticks, when it's just framing and there's no electrical, there's no, there's no mechanical inside those walls yet. It seems like that's the time to catch any of that. If we're going to move any walls, interior walls, now's the time. And a lot of times we've talked about how will you use this room? Is this, and on paper, clients will feel very certain, oh no, that's plenty, we don't need any. But then they see it in person and realize, my daughter has a lot of clothes. Maybe this closet, can we capture a little bit of this attic space and enlarge it? And those tweaks I would put in the easy portion of, we're reframing, but earlier on it's
easier.
Not nearly as dramatic as catching it later on.
It literally is. It's just labor and some additional material costs.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely.
Correct.
So, and I guess the bigger thing is, like, it becomes not impossible, nothing's impossible, but the further past that point you go,
yes,
it becomes a bigger and bigger deal.
Yes, last minute, what I'm going to call last minute, later on changes send a domino effect that becomes greater and greater as we go, right? So because we have to keep up with all of the things affected by that change. So you move a wall by a foot or 2 feet, your recessed light layout now changes to stay centered, right? And some of the things that when clients make changes emotionally, quickly, on the fly, later on in the build, they lose track. Oh, I want to do this. And then they lose track of now the lighting doesn't light up and that's already been done. So now it has to change, or we have to choose to live with it, not centered quite the way that we want it. Your beam layout will be affected if there's beams in the ceiling. So now we're having to, change all of that.
It's truly
and
a domino.
Oh, it can become huge.
Yeah.
And so that's why at framing is really in my head, that last change, that last chance to make some of those changes and for them to feel fairly easy, because the rest at least is still on paper and can still be adjusted, if that makes sense.
Jay, during the framing walk, maybe either of you can answer this for me. It's not, the windows and doors aren't in yet, correct?
No.
So if there was a change to that package at that point, what happens?
Moving
that's
a
already
window,
been ordered,
shifting
right?
a window,
They're ordered,
not a
yeah.
big deal. Some of that comes down to what's your window package like. If you have what I'm going to call a standard domestic window, think of the big name brands, right? They're a 6 to 8 week lead time for windows.
Okay.
If you have a European or a steel Hope's window package, is what I work with a lot.
20 weeks.
It's a 28 plus week lead time. Yeah. And when you have to make changes, that clock starts over. So I'm typically ordering windows before we even starting the foundation on projects that have something like that. So a lot of that comes down to your selections. And again, that's the conversation you have front. If you want to go this route, we have to talk about this now. You have to be comfortable making these decisions now. You just have to know that if you want to change this later, it's a major consequence because of that, or it can be a major consequence because of that.
So let's say somebody wanted to order a window with one of these fancy window packages, and there's just right now, they had 2 windows, they want 3. Can you continue the process at that point and put up like plywood, and then that gets added at it may cost extra money, but the other windows can be installed and you can largely be done?
Absolutely. We had a delay on the windows on Sullivan's Island, and we built window frames to the exact dimensions of the windows from the shop drawings, and I set those in all of my openings. So I came through and we ran our exterior trim. We did all of our rough-ins. I insulated the roof line before I run all my HVAC and everything, so I make sure I can get to all the spots. Windows came, put them in, rolling right on into the next phase.
Very cool. Very cool. What would do you ever do this process just designer and builder first and then bring in the client, or do you always do it pretty much one framing walk? What does that look like? I'm sure because you're framing it, you're looking for things, but then would you come in maybe before the clients?
We do that quite a bit, especially on very large custom homes. We just did one in Harlan where they had only framed the first floor, and we did what I would call a pre-framing walk, right? So we walked it with the builder to just look at everything and be fully prepared for the walk with the client to explain any tweaks that we would like to make. Just feel like we were very prepared, and then we're going to do the same with the second story once it's done. Just because, as you said previously from your own experience with your electrical layout, these walkthroughs can be very long, especially when we're talking about very large homes. And it's one of the first chance that the client has to see it with their designer, with their builder. They have a lot of questions. It's lengthy. It's, can be a little stressful. It can feel, so break it down per floor, or for us to have done a pre-walk and really feel very prepared to, enunciate and explain clearly anything that we feel like needs to be adjusted. or not is, I think sometimes a really good idea. We pretty much do that for almost all the walkthroughs on those more complex, higher end homes. We do a pre-walk and make sure that we're very prepared.
So, how much time is actually spent looking at framing versus, oh my gosh, this is where the island's going to be. And, oh my gosh, this is where this is where you were talking. Oh, how much of it is that?
Well, this is the part, right, where going back to this pre-walk, we measured in real life for all the spaces, the closets, where is there a funky roof line that we were not expecting when it's the case of a second story, anything like that, because it's our first chance to take these closet designs that we had, already made for our clients and make sure that it's all going to work. Sometimes we find out that there's going to be a large air return, smack in the middle of somewhere where we were going to have a dresser built into a closet. Now everything has to shift. So it's really great for us to do our own walkthrough, measure everything. That takes hours. Just take our time, because with the client, it is definitely a very different discussion. It's not so much about the mechanical and that minutia. It's more about, yes, here's going to be your island. And very often we'll chalk those things on the floor so that they can feel the space and, walk between in their kitchen, between their island and their back wall. And, sometimes we'll decide to shift things a little bit. So it's with the client, it's very much a game of let's stand in the spaces and visualize how you're going to live. And we have our furniture layouts and we walk through them. And again, it's a chance to adjust that. It's picturing it with lighting. It's really, let's dream it up. Let's visualize what we've dreamt up kind of game. It's a lot more fun with the client.
Yeah.
than with just a builder. It's a lot more technical, but very necessary.
I bet. So framing walk's complete. Everybody's happy. Revisions have been made. Jay, where are we going to next in the building process?
Well, then we're rolling right into mechanicals. So, typically I'm already going to have the plumbing fixtures. I'm already going to have what I'm going to call structural lighting fixtures, anything that's a can light, a bathroom fan, anything that has to go in. And not that we can't adjust it after that, but we know what the light's going to be. It's just where we're going to put it at that point. So I'm rolling right into installation at that point. And then one of the things that I always do is I always bring everybody back for a second walkthrough before we insulate. Everything's wired, everything's up, but there's a big difference between saying, I want the lights down the center of the hallway, and you show up and it's like, well, man, that's a lot of lights. Maybe we can lose a couple of these. Or, lighting control, right? If maybe this needs to be on a separate zone from this, the way that we had it set up, we'll, you talk about technology progressing, right? That's one of the big things is how we control things in our house. So we'll usually have a basis for something up front, but that's a good time that it's an easy change at that point, too. And you can visually, you can see the end result start to kind of come to life more so than just at the framing walk. And at that point, it's not hard to take one can light down and move it around at that point. But 2 weeks later, when insulation is in and everything, it could be a much bigger deal at that point.
Yeah, I'm usually in favor, because a frame walk can actually take quite a bit of time and energy, and and you're doing one in July at 105 degrees. Everyone after 3 hours they've had it. I like a few weeks later, once framing has been adjusted, as you said, to actually do a pre-mechanical walk, either with the builder or with the client present as well. Just to check, we've laid out, exactly where our wall-mounted faucets are going to be in the powder room, and where do all of our pieces for plumbing go, where we want a bench or not. But again, checking all of that in person, making sure that in real life it doesn't feel like something needs to switch, or realizing that this shower, is really large. And we've seen that at the frame walk, and we were all fine with it, but we weren't really thinking about necessarily, okay, where do all of the controllers go? That's part of that pre-mechanical walk. So checking all of that so that they can start to set their rough-in valves for plumbing and wire for lighting and all that fun stuff, I think is really useful. It's really great to do several of these walks where you're more focused on the next steps to make it a little more digestible for the clients.
Very cool. Last question, and this one I'm going to have for you, Jay, specifically. What do you do just to, worked on a wide range of projects, and the job sites vary. I've always, and so this is kind of a leading question, I've always associated a really good build with this being very tidy process. Like, what do you do to get, because I imagine framing creates a lot of debris, nails, etc. It can be a dangerous situation, right? What do you do to prep for that before, if anything, what do you do to prep before you have the designer and client come through and see this work?
So, I would say the thing that I drive through with not only my employees, but my subcontractors and my partners, because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. We're one big team. Is that, if we're building a $10 million house, it needs to look like a $10 million house from the day the silt fence goes up until the client moves in. People need to go by it here, and this needs to look like an elevated level of construction, and it should be. Personally, my approach is I don't ask anybody to do something I haven't done myself. So it's not unusual for me to be on a job site on a Friday afternoon using a shop vac or cleaning up. And that sets the tone for the team. It's easier for people to understand that, this is part of my job, but if I don't do it, he is. And because we have good relationships and work together, we're doing that. But you take that to another level before clients and designers are coming to town. We shop vac every stud bay. If you walk in one of my job sites for a walkthrough and you don't think that it's the cleanest job site you've ever seen, then I did not do my job appropriately.
Yeah.
And it's a lesson that I learned very early on. When I worked for somebody else, my mentor and I, we spent a Friday evening shop vacking and cleaning a house just because it was dirty and it needed done. And the next Monday, a client walked into our office and said, I went to 6 job sites this weekend and yours was the cleanest and most organized. This is my house plan. I want you guys to build it. When can you start? And at that point in time, that was the dollar-wise, the largest project that contractor I worked for had ever received. Wow. Based solely on what the job site looked like.
Wow.
Because most people can't walk in and see the framing in a house and know the difference between a good framing job and a bad framing job. A framer can, a good contractor can, but everybody can go in and see the difference between clean and organized and dirty and unorganized. And you can't do organized work in a disorganized space.
Well said.
So true. I totally, I judge based on that as well. And I think that it definitely makes a huge impression on clients. And I mean, quality builders are organized and maintain a very clean job site typically. And they also hire trades that have more respect for the job site and the customer than others. And so it goes all the way down the whole chain, right, of better quality in the end. That is reflected in that cleaner, neater, well-organized job site. And I totally agree that it's so important.
Yeah, it's even for a vendor, like we can tell so much about is this going to be the right fit for us, and it's one of those small things, and it doesn't cost really anything but time and caring. But it's what can be shown. I think that's a great story that you just shared. It's what can be shown. And, you know, the fact of the matter is, to me, the number one thing that it shows is that this person has intentionality and cares about somebody else's money and dream. Like, because that's what it is.
Well, it shows respect and it shows an attention to detail that, you know, they will carry through every aspect of the build.
Yeah. And there's a really good thing, even just, you know, and again, I don't want this to be a podcast about cleaning, but I'm sure it gives you an incredible opportunity to catch things that wouldn't have been caught had you not spent the time going through and oh, wait a second, this isn't right.
Absolutely. That's when I make my punch list is when I'm cleaning. You know, sometimes I'll go out on Saturdays and that's when the job site's slow. I can move things that I wouldn't normally move because I'm cleaning, and then oh man, you know, we forgot to do this floor vent the certain way or whatever it may be. This floor is sometimes it really helps you prevent stuff too. Floors go down earlier in the process when you don't have baseboard, right? Everybody's loving Riglet or plaster straight to the baseboard now. So you have to put your floors down early and protect them. When they come through to set the door package, they're having to tear that back so they can make sure your door jamb is right on the hardwood. Well, it's easy for that piece of tape that was not taped to the floor, but taped across your floor protection. Somebody walks past and it comes up, and now you're getting debris underneath your floor protection and you don't know it until it's too late, and then you have scratches and everything. And one of the things that for me that I think it shows to what your point was, the care and the respect that you're showing the homeowners. We are in your relationship as long as you will have us, you know, forever. And especially if it's a second home, these people depend on us to be their eyes and ears and look out for their investment, look out for the fact that when they're coming into town, you know, most of these people are very successful, lead very busy lives. And when they get downtime, they don't want to have to come down and worry about taking care of their house. And they have to have the confidence in us that when they are coming, you know, everything is ready for them. They don't have to spend time working on their house. They can relax and they can enjoy that time because we care enough about them and about what we're building and what we're providing for them that we want them to be able to come in and enjoy that space and it not be a burden. We'll take that burden on for you.
Well said. Well said. Well, guys, this has been fantastic. I think we have covered everything that one could hope to learn about how to be prepared for the beginning stages of your dream build. So I really appreciate it. Going to go to quick rapid fire. Marie-Joe, I'll start with you. What's your go-to summer weekend activity?
Oh man, that's my go-to.
Outside of work.
Yeah. Trick question. Gardening.
Jay, how about you?
Well, I spend all week working on other people's houses, and on the weekend, I usually have to work on my own. But aside from that, you know, in Charleston, it's anything on the water. You know, you can go to the beach. You know, kids slow that down a little bit when you have to drag 3 kids out there. But anything on the water, fishing, anything like that is where it's at in Charleston.
Okay, wonderful. One thing you never travel without?
My iPad.
That's okay. Yeah.
Probably that. Probably my iPad or my. What I should say is my pillow.
Oh.
I'm that. I've had the same pillow since like middle school, and I can't go anywhere without it.
Really? Okay, that's an interesting fact.
I crack up at people who travel with their own pillows. That cracks me up.
That's why I always have to have a big suitcase because I have to put my pillow in my suitcase.
Oh, wow.
I don't want to carry it through the airport and get it all dirty, but I'll put it in my suitcase.
You'll have Marie-Joe laughing at you.
Yeah.
For sure.
Marie-Joe, design taste, neutral or bold?
Oh, that is so tough because it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I can answer that. You blend that perfectly.
Bit of both. Yeah,
you blend that perfectly.
I think neutral, timeless, but with something a little shocking, something that's going to surprise a little bit.
Yeah, a little Easter egg. Jay, neutral or bold?
I would say neutral, very neutral and natural.
Okay.
If I'm going to be bold, it's going to be with a piece of furniture or something like that, not necessarily in what I'm building.
Okay, very cool. Like that. Okay, final, build your dream backyard, pool, garden, or outdoor kitchen. Or all of the above.
Absolutely all of the above. I love a little pool because we live in, it's hot. It's hot. So after you garden, you need a little dip in the pool.
Mm-hmm.
And then at night, I love, just sitting outside, reading a little bit while or Sylvain is grilling, or ideally something from our garden.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely all three. That's the dream.
Yeah, lovely. Jay?
Oh, absolutely outdoor kitchen.
Okay.
I'm always out there. I got a fire table. I've got a couple different smokers. Anything in the South, barbecue, anything food related on the weekends. That's when the kids love to go outside and help Dad start a fire.
Yeah.
And then I get to sit out there and enjoy a little bit of peace and quiet while I'm manning the grill. And,
that's awesome. Hey, that's wonderful. Okay, well, this phase, the framing, the layout, the early structure is where a dream starts to feel like something real. It's where collaboration becomes visible and where smart planning sets the stage for beauty and function to flourish. So let's recap. When framing begins, communication is everything. Trust between builder and designer keeps the vision aligned, and flexibility on site is the secret ingredient to long-term success. In our next episode, we move deeper into the construction process when systems go in, walls go up, and the vision truly begins to take form. Thanks for listening to Couture Construction. If today's episode offered insight or inspiration, we'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on Instagram at Couture Construction for even more behind the scenes of luxury design and building. This episode was produced by Cast Collective and Chelsea Rand. Until next time, keep cultivating creativity.